Hello and welcome everyone, it is me, Zilabal, also known as How to Do This, back for you after a long break, because traveling back in time does take its toll. Starting the video in like a more, unusual location. Usually you'd be seeing me in front of a deck list by now, but I decided for, a quick showcase of the 2008 event and maybe a bit of what I played. I'm gonna jump right into it. You see me starting here with a very simple T set. Of course, I am on the one deck that I am maybe a bit known for by now. Normal summoning a South here, which doesn't really care about that gravity bind. And this deck also has like a fairly decent way through that, I want to say. Mainly due to Slingen existing, which probably was like one of the few cute things this deck had up its sleeve for this event specifically. And this is the very, very easy entree for the whole video. As you see me playing against Burn, my opponent is flipping a Stealth Bird here. But yeah, funny things are about to happen as, the Southon resolves, and I do hit a Radion off of it, which decent stat line for the format. But Slingen, I think, is like one of the stars of the show here. As you can see me tributing off that Southon there. Shaking off 2 Nightmare Wheels in one go, and also getting rid of the Gravity Bind before, making myself ready for a big push, which does prompt a scoop out of my opponent. But with that out of the way, I think it is time to look at me bullying people on definitely better decks, even if those people are Gladiator Beast players. Let the 5 turns run out in normal speed, but I think for this one we are going to pick up the pace. As mentioned, this is against Glad Beast. This was in the couple of games that I did play, one of the decks I did see the most of. Fairly simple deck to get a hold of once you know what your opponent is going to be up to, because the Gladiator Beasts do work in a somewhat predictable way. But once this deck, starts getting into, this scary loop, it's a crazy one. Opponent makes the turn 2, Gizaris here forces out both of my back row. I'm very glad my opponent didn't go for a monster, because then I can tribute off the Setslingen for a Caius. This is 2008. Raging Battle is a distant dream, I think, at this point, and the most recent Morphtronic cards are the Crimson Crisis pieces. Those being Borden, Map, and Slingen, to mention, a couple notable ones that also made their way into this list. Do, luckily enough, top deck into a Monster Reborn here. Don't want to walk into a bottomless trap hole again before, sacking off for a Caius, and in that same moment, randomly playing around Glad Beast Sword Chariot, which is a crazy card for the ones of you who may not be familiar with a card as monumental. This is simple counter trap, control the Glad Beast, opponent activates a monster effect, and you negate and destroy it. Very simple card, but absolutely, backbreaking at the time for most decks. Just being able to, stick a Glad Beast and have a blanket negate for a monster. Incredible. One of the few things that did propel this deck to, tiered status back in the day. Opponent doesn't seem to be drawing into the hottest things in the universe, but against a 2400 beta, Glad Beast doesn't have a whole lot of good top decks, minus Glad Beast plus removal, and that final one must have not been it, since my opponent picks up their cards here, and we move different ways. But yeah, with that, let's get into a last replay before I show you guys the deck list. Well, and here we are again. This is more of an opener that I wanted to be expecting. As you can see, I am consistently opening a good couple of trap cards, not only because, back in the day that was how it was, but also because I think this deck does need a good couple of trap cards to stick around. You see me pulling out the Borden here just for the battle protection, activating Morphtronic Map, setting 2 cards here. Don't want to get overconfident and get punished by Heavy Storm, which is in the format. Opponent once again on Gladiator Beasts. This was the one good deck I was able to consistently take games off, because Light Sworn with 3 Honest and I think 2 JD, 3 Lumina. Kind of not a great thing to be facing with this. But yeah. MST, a freshly set bottomless trap hole here in the end phase. It feels good to be doing that shit again. There you can see one of the War Chariots flip that I was, ragging on last game. And I was like, surely my opponent doesn't have the second one. It's always the second War Chariot that gets you, man. Sapphire gets negated, and I'm kind of staring at this board like, what the hell? What just happened? Last back row doesn't seem to be anything here. As I get to Monster Reborn, the Southbound. Crazy to me that Reborn was legal back at this time. Insane one-off to be just like sacking into so many game states. Go to combat here, get shrinked on the Radion, but because I know how Glad Beasts work, I'm going to Book of Moon the Radion here real quick. Just so that my opponent doesn't get the tag out at end step off of the Equeste having done battle. And something else funny about Book of Moon and one of the other cards in the deck list, we've gotten a Deformer counter. Do these have the Japanese name? Or like the Japanese localized? That's so funny. Because for the uninitiated, Morphtronic's localized Japanese name is Deformer. That's so funny. I never noticed that. But yeah, opponent gives me a juicy Mirror Force here. After sticking this the Quarry to the field, and once my turn rolls around, things don't look so peachy for my opponent. I do commit the Sling in here and get like torrential for my life savings essentially. But realistically speaking, looking at this game state, I do feel a slight bit better. Well, at least until the Mamelio hits the board and I can't bottomless that, which my opponent promptly uses to grab a Bestiary, which is something that can fall into the bottomless trap hole. So we're quickly going to get rid of that. I think this is also a format where Glad still had 3 Bestiary, if I'm not completely mistaken. Again, event is over. I'm recording this very late because I've been busy due to college. And the summer heat being absolutely unbearable. And I have just noticed that I wasn't on speed up. So yeah, we're kind of, top decking, looking for something realistically. Don't want to give my opponent the most profitable heavy here, even if I think no real reason for my opponent to heavy me here. As we go to the end phase after I econ a Laquaria, which does give me another Morph counter. Giant Red gets normal, gets Mirror Force, which is incredibly unfortunate. As I set a bottomless trap hole that I probably set a bit too late. Opponent swaps the Laquari back, tags Laquari into another Bestiary. Once again, we've been here before, I think. And from here on, I'm in a position where if I top deck a Morphtronic name, I'm kind of chilling, because I've got 3 Morph counters on the map. So that means every Morphtronic gains a baseline 900 attack, which is pretty good off of a field spell, considering what other field spells were giving the archetypes back in the day. Getting 900 for a fairly easy condition of 3 things must have changed the battle position. Pretty good. As you're going to see me normal summon a 2100 Sling in here. Which is kind of the ideal with the deck. The deck's not on 3 maps. I think maxing out on map is not great, because you don't want to be drawing into multiples. Especially because I think this has modern field spell rulings, so you can't override it and then also get the float, similar to Gear Town back in the day. See me setting 2 here because I'm finally do I really need to play around heavy in this situation here? And the Caius is kind of crazy, as Caius does deal with back row and is able to run over the set Hoplimus. That would have been horrendous to run into, admittedly, because that's tag out for a Questy, grabs another name back. Test Tiger by itself doesn't do a whole lot, so that is going to wrap up the game. But with that, let's take a look at the deck list that I played and maybe talk a bit about it. Well, with that, we take a look at a list. I didn't play too many games of this. Frankly, didn't have the time, and also was replaying the 2011 World Championship with a very cool build around that, funnily enough, is in my recently crafted cards, or recently obtained cards. Very neat for older formats. But this is kind of what I went with. As mentioned, I don't think Crimson Crisis is the newest set for the format, but it's at least the newest set for Morphtronics that were legal in the format. So we're kind of limited to, the initial ones. That's where, you know, Salphon, Radion, and Boomboxen come from, and some of the, I guess, newer ones in Borden and Stingen. Now, why these Morphtronics and not some others? Boomboxen is here as, I guess, another giant red target. Borden and Radion mainly here for their stat lines. Radion being 18 on normal and 19 on set, and Borden being a 18 set is solid stats for this day and age. You could be setting worse, admittedly. Slinging is here just to have the most amount of chances to hit it off of Salphon, because turning a normal summon Salphon into removal is pretty good. It's like a really shitty breaker. Deck's not good. What can I tell you? This didn't change anytime. Boomboxen's a double attacker. Maybe nice if you get, like, you know, a couple counters on the map and can, you know, really start punching for some damage. Sangan, just like an Edison, grabs you any Morphtronic name, which is great. Giant Rat just gets you to Salphon, mostly. You can grab Borden off a Giant Rat, but oftentimes you will just be grabbing Salphon, because Salphon, you know, just gets you another Morphtronic name. Not on, like, the most modern names, but I didn't find that too bad. Outside of, like, you know, if you open just one singular Salphon, you know, next to that you still have 12 names in the deck. Which isn't the worst thing in the universe. Modern decks are on 12 copies and still sort of work. So that's kind of it. On the high end, to, like, give the deck, you know, a bit more punching power in the ring, playing a small Monarch lineup of a Mobius and 2 Caius. I was on a Riser before, and I think you can maybe go up on a 4th Monarch. If you don't want to bother with tributes, something you can do, something I had pulled up previously. This guy is legal. This guy's a good card, I've heard. Ask any Edison player. Very good card. Out Stardust Dragon, even if, you know, you're not seeing a whole lot of synchros in this format. But Blackwing Gale Whirlwind is like a good standalone tuner you can, you know, put on the board that can oftentimes, you know, deal with an opponent's normal summon fairly handily. And does open up a synchro option for you, or like synchro options in general. Because as you can see, the extra deck currently for this list is more of a token extra deck in case we steal a tuner off of Econ. But yeah, Gale would also open up Armor Master, which is a fairly formidable card for a format like this to you know, be rockin'. For the spells, run a Monster Reborn, 2 Morphtronic maps. I just like map. I really heckin' love map. And if there's a low-powered environment, I will play map. I heckin' love map, dude. It's kind of why it's, you know, my end screen and also my, like, desktop background on my college PC. Anyways. Gains morph counters each time a battle position is changed, and only Morphtronics gain 300 per morph counter. So even at 2 morph counters, this is already a fairly sizable boost at 600. Slingon becomes an 1800 normal summon just as Boomboxen does. Radion becomes absolutely massive at 2400. Salphon and Borden aren't too big, but you're running these guys for, like, you know, their, you know, defense effect and defense stat, and, you know, the attack position effect of, you know, getting you to the big boys. The one MST you were allowed to play to Book of Moon, this was, I believe, semi-limited. I need to... Let me consult my screenshot that I shared as a community post. This was semi-limited. Enemy controller, 3 copies, fairly, you know, good inclusion, I think, especially if, you know, you want to get some value out of Morphtronic map. As it's a fairly decent piece of removal, lets you, like, normal summon a guy if it gets bottomless, econ an opponent's monster, maybe crash it, so you're still, you know, getting, you know, rid of your opponent's resource in a way. Mirror Force, you know, the big blowouts that are legal for the time. Mirror Force, Torrential Tribute, 2 Dust Tornado, a card that I absolutely adore in formats like this around this period of time. Or, you know, anything where MST is limited. I absolutely love Dust Tornado. Bottomless Trap Hole, Dimension of Prison, because I figured I would be seeing a Stardust Dragon hit the board, but in hindsight, there wasn't. So ideally, you probably play like the third bottomless here if that's not, you know, semi-limited next time around. And then find a space for Heavy Storm because that's missing from the stack list because I wasn't going to craft that for a 3-day event. I was going to play like maybe 6 games of in total. And then 3 Solemn Judgment. With the power of hindsight, which is 2020, we know this is a good card in an old format context, and you should be maxing out on it. So I did just that, and it was pretty darn good. Extra deck, yeah, is some of the greatest hits of the time. It's Commemorative Fortress Dragon, Armory Arm, and Justice Catastron, Android, a Bryanek, a Euryquizas, a Goyo Guardian, even if, you know, Errated, an Urbellum, a Black Rose, a Life Transfer, a Dark End, a Light End, a Colossal Fighter, a Stardust Dragon, and a Mistworm. Realistically, you could be bringing like a Red Dragon Archfiend or like a Thought Ruler Archfiend if you want to craft those, but I think both of those are URs. RDA is a super. I could have crafted RDA, I guess, but Thought Ruler is for some reason a UR. So make your own decision if you want to craft those. But yeah, extra deck in general, more like a you can, you don't have to. The deck doesn't have any natural tuners yet. Could play some that are like Giant Rat targets, Psychic Commander's pretty alright, or the Gales mentioned previously. But in general, this was fun. You know, Legacy play is always fun, especially, you know, if it's around these days where, you know, the Morphtronics were fresh and new. And yeah, I hope this archetype gets future support. But let me know your thoughts on that in the comments down below. With all that being said, thanks for checking into this short video I'm putting out. Hope I can upload something again soon. Smile. College work is kind of rough at the moment because, you know, we're nearing the end of the semester, so things start piling up. Anyways, with that out of the way, I will be thanking you very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys again, hopefully, next time. But until then, goodbye.